Hi, I'm Mike Coe, and welcome back to the Options Edge. If you're just starting out, you may be wondering, what is an option and how do options work? First of all, an options contract is a derivative. Don't let the term scare you. Derivative instruments are simply those whose value changes as a function of the change in something else. Seem complicated? It isn't really, and perhaps a 2,500-year-old example of the first known use of derivatives will help illustrate the point. Thales of Miletus was a Greek mathematician, astronomer, and pre-Socratic philosopher in Ionia, modern-day Turkey, who lived between 624 and 545 BC. Among other things, he is the first known individual to whom a mathematical discovery has been attributed. It wasn't his only claim to fame. Thales sought a means to speculate on the olive market. Two versions of his efforts potentially involve the first documented uses of derivatives. In one version, Thales agreed in advance to rent olive presses, receiving a commitment from the press owners to provide him the presses at harvest time at a discounted rent relative to what they might normally have received. The press owners were comfortable accepting less rent because they were avoiding the risk that the presses might not get rented at all. This arrangement is similar to a forward or futures contract. In another historical recount, Thales paid olive oil press owners a deposit which provided him a non-binding reservation to rent the presses at harvest time for a predetermined price if he needed them. This arrangement suited Thales well for two reasons. One, he wasn't committing to pay the full rent on the presses if he didn't need them. He would only lose his deposit. Second, Thales didn't have a great deal of money. So he was able to secure more presses with the limited funds he had available, creating more leverage in his speculation. His arrangement provided a right but not an obligation to rent the presses. A right but not an obligation is a defining characteristic of an option. As it turns out, Thales did very well and profited handsomely. Greeks keep returning to the derivative story, but we'll get back to that in future videos. In the meantime, here are some important concepts to remember. A futures contract obligates both a buyer and a seller to take or make delivery of the underlying instrument or good in the future for a price that is established today. By contrast, an options contract gives the buyer or holder the right but not the obligation. The obligation is on the counterparty if the holder decides to exercise their right. I'm Mike Coe, and in the next video, we'll begin to discuss more modern versions of standardized options.